2050. Radio Imanzi 105.1 FM.
We got you updated. This is Radio Imanzi News in English.
You are tuned to Radio Imanzi, broadcasting from Kigali. Here is the news in English, brought to you by Fiona Umuganura. The headlines. The Prime Minister, Edward Njidene, has said that the celebration of achievements is a good opportunity to take on new goals. The government of Rwanda has called on citizens to start getting the second booster dose of COVID-19 vaccine. The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations has said African nations are free to buy grain from Russia, but could face consequences if they trade in U.S. sanctioned commodities such as Russian oil. Welcome back. Now, news in detail. Prime Minister Dr. Edward Njidene has said that the celebration of achievements is a good opportunity to take on new goals to build on, because it will allow us to meet the nation's long-term development goals. The Premier made the remarks during the celebration of the National Harvest Day, Umuganura, in Rulindo district. Umuganura is a Rwandan harvest festival celebrated on the first Friday of August. Umuganura, literally rendered Thanksgiving Day, is Rwanda's first fruit festival. It happens as the very first portion of the annual harvest starts to come in. For exactly 1800 years, this holiday has been a part of the Rwandan culture, and it keeps on being so today. The Prime Minister noted that harvest celebrations will not take place if agriculture, livestock farming, and other development activities are not successful. That is why Rwandans should participate in government development programs like agriculture and livestock insurance to avoid losses that would render production unavailable. The government has called on Rwandans to start getting the second booster dose of COVID-19 vaccine. The Ministry of Health announced that they'll begin administering the second booster shot on Monday 8th at all immunization sites, with a focus on adults over 60 years of age and others with weakened immune systems. The Minister of State in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Tarsis Mhunga, said that COVID-19 mutates over time and the treatments are being developed based on the existing virus. He also added that they have launched a second dose booster program of the COVID-19 vaccine, starting with the elderly and those who are physically weak due to their health conditions. Rwanda's Minister of Trade and Industry has said the land acquired by Rwanda in Djibouti is a long-term investment that will be used to establish a long-term profitable business. Minister Jean Chrysostome Gabitsinze made the remarks during a press conference at the ongoing International Trade Fair Expo 2022. The discussions were mainly on the ongoing International Trade Fair and other trade, investment and economic related issues. Yvette Rudasingwa has this report.
In 2013, Rwanda acquired land at the Djibouti seaport, about 60 hectares of land in Djibouti. The land is situated in the free trade zone along the port of Djibouti, making it strategic for investment like manufacturing and logistics. The minister said land is an asset for long, and when you have to plan a business, you have to plan long term.
The land is an asset for long term. So when you have to develop a business on land given for long term, you must be able to plan a long run business. And it can require more time and more money. So for that reason, we make sure that we keep the situation efficiently and we calculate everything. So we are sure that when we begin the business is for long run, not just short term or just commercialization as we know. So a land must be used for long term. For that reason, as Chairman said, we have to make sure that the business plan is for not some years but for many years in coming.
The minister also reassured Rwandans, especially business community, that the upcoming Kenyan presidential elections will not interfere with the trade law from Kenya to Rwanda and vice versa. Kenyans will go to polls on August 9th. Among other leaders, elect a new president that will replace incumbent Uhuru Kenyatta, who has served up his 2 terms. During the post-election violence that occurred after 2007 elections in Kenya, goods transiting through the Northern Corridor worth $47.5 million were lost in violence, and the owners are still awaiting compensation. The Mombasa port serves different countries in the region, including Rwanda, Uganda, DRC Congo, Burundi, and South Sudan, which underscores Kenya's significance in regional trade. The minister said that while they are aware that Kenya has had issues in the past, we must look to the future, and they see no signs of issues occurring during the elections. But they are also prepared to deal with them if they do arise.
We know that in 2017 they have had some issues, but we can't build on the past to see the present. So we have to make sure that we see how things have been going on until now. So from 2007 to 13 to 18, the situation changed seriously. So there's no fear that Kenya will have peace and good elections. So what we see today, there is no sign of conflicts or problems, but always when there is a peace, tomorrow can have some issues and we are prepared for that. Sometimes the issue is that when Kenya is having issues, the transport is an issue, but the discussion we see, the diplomatic situation you have, the information you get, honestly saying that I don't see any sign regarding the election now. If it happen as a post elections, we'll be able to deal because we are always prepared. It's not an issue of one ministry, because we understand the situation like this include even security issue, people, business community, information, so we are getting them, and what I can see as now, there's no need to refer to the past to see Kenya today. Let's see Kenya as it is, then we plan for the future.
The minister stated that the government is planning numerous initiatives for post-COVID-19 recovery business development, particularly for the private sector.
There are many, because depending on the category, as you know, even now, because of COVID, you have a fund. A fund we give to the private sector, hotels and other manufacturing, to make sure that they recover from the COVID. This is the first incentive. The incentive is the big one, is that we have them in our heart. They know we are together. Then you can have those funds well used. As you know, you have a BDF. BDF has a cheap money, if I can call it like this. We have a BRD. So the incentives are there. What we want is just our business people make sure that we are connected, they have a good business plan, and the implementation is clear. Otherwise, the government is always here to support, and incentives are many, and they will come other according to the situation we are going on. We are happy now we are ending with COVID, if you see the situation, but we are in the Russia war and Ukraine, so we must now think differently, and we are doing it. So what we do is to make sure that we find other ways to supply chain, to make sure that nothing is, to make sure that everything is going as there is no conflict. So is what I can say. But briefly, in summary, incentives is the will the government has to support the private sector.
The trade minister participated in the press conference alongside the chairperson of the Private Sector Federation, Robert Bafakurera, and RNP spokesperson CP Jean Bosco Kabera. Yvette Rudasingwa, Radio Imanzi.
Thank you, Yvette Rudasingwa. moving on ahead, the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources has urged farmers to start utilizing a use of mixed inorganic and organic fertilizers to boost the agricultural production in terms of quality and quantity. According to the Minister of Agriculture and Animal Resources, Dr. Geraldine Mukeshimana, there are still farmers who neglect the use of organic fertilizers in favor of the inorganic, thinking that it expands their production. She therefore encouraged them to apply a mix of both inorganic and organic fertilizers because it generates an increased production. A recent report by Rwanda Climate Change and Development Network says the overuse of inorganic fertilizers affects the rest of the ecosystem. The government of Rwanda has tabled a bill that seeks to introduce a university degree as a requirement for candidates for Rwanda's members of the East African Legislative Assembly. Hirgo Felix has this report.
The bill was tabled when the Chamber of Deputies adopted the relevance of the draft organic law governing election of Rwanda's members of the East African Legislative Assembly. After the approval of its relevance, the bill was sent to the Chamber of Deputies Committee on Political Affairs and Gender, which started scrutinizing it the same day. Polls for Rwandan members of the EALA are currently governed by the law of 2012 relating to election procedures for Rwandan members of the East African Legislative Assembly. While explaining the relevance of the new bill to the Chamber of Deputies, Jean-Marie Vianney Gatabazi, the Minister of Local Government, said that it was initiated to accommodate new organic law ideas in a bid to appropriately prepare the election for Rwandan members of the EALA planned for this year. Under Article 3 of the bill, it was proposed that requirements to be a Rwandan member of EALA candidate include holding at least a bachelor's degree or equivalent qualification. Rwanda's members for EALA are drawn from categories, namely political organizations represented in Parliament, the National Youth Council, the National Women Council, the National Council of Persons with Disabilities. Minister Gatabazi said that just after 1994 genocide against Tutsi and during the government of transition, it was not easy to find people who had completed secondary school, partly because some of those who had reached such a level of education were killed during genocide, or few people could study to that level. But with the current state of education, he said it is easy to find people who have a university degree. He indicated that even in the local district councils, there are people who have higher level of academic qualification. He said, considering the analysis that are made, the documents that are read, decisions that are made, and implications they have on the economy and country's politics, the idea rose for the need of a level to understand things and to represent the country in terms of explaining its situations and defending them when such debates are held. The treaty for establishment of the EAC states that the National Assembly of each particular The treaty for the establishment of the EAC states that the national
The Treaty for the Establishment of the East African Community states that the National Assembly of each partner state shall elect, not from among its members, 9 members of the Assembly who shall represent as much as it is feasible the various political parties represented in the National Assembly, shades of opinion, gender, and other special interest groups in that partner state in accordance with such procedure as the National Assembly of each partner.
Some items of international news on Radio Imanzi.
A Nigerian robotics engineer has developed a bra that can detect breast cancer. The new device can help in the fight against breast cancer in Nigeria, where an estimated 17,000 women die of the disease every year. The smart bra contains a total of 14 sensors connected to a USB outlet with cables. The system also includes a phone application where the procedure can be followed. The new device also helps to raise awareness about breast cancer. The U.S. ambassador to the United Nations has said African nations are free to buy grain from Russia, but could face consequences if they trade in U.S.-sanctioned commodities such as Russian oil. Countries can buy Russian agricultural products, including fertilizer and wheat, Linda Thomas-Greenfield said in a news conference in the capital Kampala after a meeting with the Ugandan President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. She added that if a country decides to engage with Russia where there are sanctions, then they stand a chance of having actions taken against them. Provisional results of Senegal's legislative elections showed that President Macky Sall's governing coalition lost its majority in a poll. However, the main opposition coalitions also failed to win a majority of the National Assembly's 165 seats. Sall's coalition, United in Hope, won 82 of the Assembly's 165 seats, one shy of a majority. The Israeli army has said it had launched airstrikes in central Gaza City. The attack killed at least 9 people, including a commander of the Islamic Jihad group and a young girl. The strikes come 4 days after Israel closed its border crossings with Gaza and restricted the movement of Israeli civilians living near the border, citing security concerns. These measures follow the arrest in the occupied West Bank of 2 prominent members of the militant group Islamic Jihad, which has a significant presence in Gaza. With that, we come to the end of tonight's edition.